Hey YouTube, thanks for stopping in. So in this video, we are going to be deflasking, and this is a flask that I purchased off of eBay. I will link below to the seller that I purchased from. Very reputable seller. Unfortunately, whenever you purchase flasks offline, there's no guarantee that the orchids you're purchasing will arrive safe and sound, and I definitely took a gamble by purchasing these orchids pretty much in the dead of winter. So there is a lot of scrambling in the jar, as you can see. So we are going to do our best to deflask these baby orchids today, and I of course will give you guys updates on how the orchids are doing. So this is not the first flask that I have ever purchased. I have purchased one before. I purchased one last July, and I actually got to purchase that one in person, so I didn't have to worry about the scrambling of the plants inside. I got to make sure that the orchids were safe and sound and that they were not jostled around in a mail truck. Unfortunately, that's not the case here, as you guys can see. Now, the difference between the scrambled orchids and the orchids that you can purchase in flask and make sure that the agar is not scrambled is that whenever the agar gets all over the plants, you have to immediately deflask the babies and pot them up. So that's the difference here. I just got this flask today. I purchased it 2 days ago and it got here today. So I have to immediately deflask these guys. I can't waste any time. Whereas if you were to purchase an orchid flask, you could, if you wanted to, keep it and wait till the plants get bigger until you feel comfortable deflasking them. The flask that I will be opening up for you guys is a Cattleya hybrid. It is a hybrid and a species orchid combined. I forget the hybrid. I know it's a Brasso-Layla Cattleya something. I'll put the name down here so you guys can see it. But the hybrid and then the species orchid is a Schomburgia, and I can't remember that one either. Again, I'll put it somewhere down here so you guys can see it. Now, flasks come in all different shapes and sizes. This is just the one that was given to me. Okay, so the bactericide and fungicide that I'm going to be using today is Fisan 20, and you definitely want to read the directions before any use of this product because it's skin burns, eye burns, don't get on your clothes, don't get on your skin, so that's why I am wearing gloves. You really should be wearing gloves anyways whenever deflasking orchids. You don't want to add any unnecessary contaminants to the orchids that you're deflasking, so it's just better to be safe than sorry. So I have added the Fisan 20 to this container here. By the way, these containers can be picked up at Lowe's or Home Depot. I think they're something like 77 cents, maybe they're $1, but they're super cheap. You don't have to buy anything expensive, and after I am done using these, they will get disposed of to make sure that there's no contaminants or anything that I'm introducing into my collection. It's just better to use new equipment every time you deflask your orchids. So the Fisan 20 is in here, and then this is just plain tap water to wash the orchids whenever they come out of the flask. Okay, and I think I'll just be able to open this. And once it is opened, you absolutely have to continue on from here. I wouldn't be able to replace the cap and go about my business. You wouldn't want to do that anyways, because like I said, the agar will burn the leaves and eventually the orchids will die if left in this condition. Okay, so now I'm just going to gently put them inside of, if I can, get out of there. Put them in the tap water first. Now all of the baby orchids are in the tap water, and I'm just going to rinse them off in the tap water. And there's a particularly large one right here. This guy is huge. So you're just going to wash the orchids and get all of the agar off of them. And after they have been washed, you want to dip them and soak them in the fungicide and bactericide. Okay, now that I have placed the orchids inside the container filled with the Physan 20, I'm going to leave these guys alone for about 10 to 20 minutes to allow them to soak up the Physan 20 and really get a good start in life. Okay guys, we are back. I have been soaking these guys for about 20 minutes. And now it is time to take them out and pot them up. There are many ways to deflask orchids. You can use anything you want as a bactericide, fungicide, whatever. I'm just using the Physan 20. I know that there's homemade recipes for disinfecting your orchids whenever they come out of the flask. Frankly, I'm just too lazy for that, and I can get this off Amazon with free shipping, so that's why I decided to get this stuff. And I've heard that it's really, really good, so I'm looking forward to using this on the rest of my collection whenever it calls for it. Okay, so the container that I'm going to be putting these orchids in is just a drip tray that I purchased from Lowe's, and I burned some holes in it. And you can get these for really, really cheap. I think these were 75 cents maybe. Really, really cheap. They're just plastic. You don't need anything fancy. And I purchased its twin because I'm actually going to use it as sort of a dome, kind of like that. I might have to tape it. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need to get, crazy with your potting materials here. So you can do it on the cheap. And these seedlings are going to be staying in this container for a while, at least a year before I disturb them again. Now the potting material that I'm going to be using is just sphagnum moss and fine fir bark. And I'm going to be using this mix for a Cattleya because as seedlings, they require much more water than an adult Cattleya would. So the seedlings prefer to be kept consistently moist. And if you try to grow them like an adult Cattleya where you dry them out, then that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to dry out, and we definitely don't want that. And also the reason that I'm using this dome here is because these seedlings have just come out of a flask where they've had consistent moisture and they've had consistent humidity, and now they're getting placed into this bark and sphagnum that they've never seen before. And so we're going to try and not scare them and put them into a comfortable and slightly more humid environment than they would receive if they didn't have the lid on there. So we're going to try and place them in here, and that way they still will be able to adjust naturally. Now you can pot your seedlings individually, but I always feel that the seedlings coming out of a flask do better when they are paired together. I don't know if you guys saw that Nova episode that they did on plants that are brothers and sisters that come out of the same seed pod, but they actually help each other grow. They also placed seedlings together that were from different pods, and they competed with each other for nutrients and for space until one of them eventually ended up out competing the other one and killing it off. So these seedlings in here, I know I'm comparing the seedlings that they used in Nova to these, but this is just the way that I like to do it. I think that because they all do come from the same seed pod, that they are going to help each other grow. Of course, I don't have any scientific basis for that, but I have done this before with my Paphiopedilum seedlings that I deflasked, and all of the ones that were potted individually ended up dying. And they were healthy. They were actually large and robust. And all of the ones that were potted together ended up surviving, and they're doing really, really well. So I have that sort of anecdotal experience that potting them together really is the best way to help them survive. Okay, so these guys have been soaking, and we're just going to I'm just going to select one here. This is the largest one, I think, apart from this one here. And you just want to keep the clumps together. You see that there's, that clump fell off, okay. You just want to try and keep the clumps together And like I said, hopefully they will help each other grow. So I'm just going to place him in here. I can hear you guys thinking it, how am I gonna pot all of these little individual baby plants? I have no idea. I haven't gotten a flask that has so many little baby grassy, this is the first Cattleya flask I've ever had to deal with, so I'm just sort of winging it. Okay guys, so I've planted all of the ones I possibly can, and you can definitely see which one is the most vigorous and which one's the biggest, so hopefully that one survives. There's no guarantee that any of them will survive. That's really the gamble that you take whenever you purchase a flask. I'm hoping to at least get one out of this entire batch here. So you can see the potting media, and I've just placed them all on top of it. I haven't planted them or anything like that. Their roots will find the media and grow into it. Okay, and now I've just placed the lid onto my little biodome, I guess you could say. And there are holes in here, there's holes in the sides for the orchids to breathe, and they're not very stable in this container, so I don't want to shake it around too much. But you can see that I've just placed the orchids there on top, and hopefully this dome is enough humidity. It should be enough humidity for them. This is what I did for my Paphiopedilums when I deflasked them last July. So now you guys actually get to see me deflask them, because I didn't do a deflasking video the last time I deflasked. Okay, so let's talk about deflasking and flasks in general. I get asked this question all the time. And I mean, I can understand why I get asked this question, but I guess for the serious orchid grower, it just makes sense as to why you would deflask your own orchids. I actually plan on doing my own cross eventually, hopefully this year. I really want to make my own cross and do my own home flasking, which I will keep you guys updated. But the reason why I like purchasing flasks is because not only do I feel really accomplished whenever they grow and thrive, because it's not always the easiest thing to get them to grow and survive. If you make it past, I deflasked my first one in July, and a lot of them are still living, so I consider that a huge win for me, especially because I'm terrible at growing Paphiopedilums, but for some reason I can grow Paphiopedilums from seed. I don't know what that's about. But the reason why I purchase the flask babies is because you can choose the best one out of the bunch. A lot of the times when growers make a cross, they will actually choose the best out of all of the other seedlings that they had flasked, and then they will name it, give it a cultivar name, and then they will tissue culture that particular orchid. So you're not getting the essentially exact same plant, even though it is a clone. It's still a clone. It's not the plant that they grew from the flask. So typically original divisions are 10 times more expensive than your clones. Clones make it easier and much more affordable for the orchid grower. So out of all of these plants, I will be able to choose the best one, the one with the best flower shape, the one that's the most vigorous grower. I already see this guy being my most vigorous grower there. So you get to choose. You are in control, and I like that. I like being in control. I like being able to determine which is the best flower and really see the orchid progress. Another reason why I like flask babies is because you can always trade off the excess ones that you don't want. Everyone always thinks that if you have a flask, you're stuck with all of these 50 plants, when in reality, you can actually trade and sell or get rid of the extra ones that you don't necessarily want. So you don't have to keep them. The last flask that I purchased, I actually ended up trading when they were still seedlings. So I actually ended up getting some more seedlings, and that was really fun because now I have, not only do I have the Paphiopedilum seedlings, but I also have the Layla Cattleya green veil dressy seedling that another person had purchased. So you get to trade, you get to watch them grow, and it's just a really accomplished feeling to be able to grow orchids from seed. Now for these particular Cattleyas, we're looking at 3 to 5 years before we see a first flowering for them. And I know that's what puts people off. You want it right then, right there. It's your money and you want it now. I can understand that people want the instant gratification, but being that I'm in this hobby for the long haul, I am not worried about waiting for these guys to bloom, because when they do bloom, it'll make it that much more worth it. And because I am in this hobby for the long haul, I have plenty of other plants to bloom and grow for me, and I don't really have just this flask here. And it's like watching paint dry, trying to watch these things grow. I know that they grow slowly, so that's why you buy many, many more plants to add to your collection, so you won't even think about these. You won't even look at this flask or any babies that you purchase and be miserable, because you'll have so many other more mature plants to keep you occupied. So that's why I purchased the flask babies, and I'm really, really excited. I can't wait to do my first flasking with you guys. I have pollinated orchids before, but I haven't done any flaskings. Wow, okay. Haven't done any flaskings because I thought it was nearly impossible to do without a lab, and maybe it still is because I've never done it before, but I don't know. We'll see what happens, and I've seen and been reading some methods on the internet that you can do at home, so that's what I plan on doing. I'm really excited about these babies. I know it's going to be a while before they bloom, but in no time, these guys will be blooming, and I'll have tons and tons of beautiful little babies to show you guys, and I can't wait for whenever that happens. So let's go put these over with my other flask babies. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for tuning into my channel, and if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section of this video. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and you'd like to see more like this one in the future, and I will see you guys later. Bye.